Good evening and welcome to Release Your Wings. I'm Dan Bagley and I'm interviewing Shireen Chadha tonight, and we're talking about peace of mind. How do you get it, and how do you go through your day, your week, your life without unnecessary disturbance? So, do we have a 15-minute answer on that one, Shireen?
We hope so.
Let's be peaceful in approaching it. So what are some of the things that might get in our way? Is there a role of how we look at the news, watch television, read the newspapers?
Sure. For me, I feel watching too much of that is really gossip. Maybe getting into other people's lives, which are not necessary, which actually, I'm just not saying it for saying it.
Yeah.
It actually makes a difference, because the thing that keeps us away from our peace of mind is when I think too much about other people, when I get into other people's lives. And 90% of the time we get into things that are no concern for us.
Yeah. You know, I think being social animals, we have, if we're not careful, we have a real predisposition toward this. And by the way, it can be enjoyable if we see it as just the game. For example, I was in the health food store today and I was behind a guy, and the guy who was checking us out, they're talking about sports. And these guys, they were experts. I mean, they went from football to hockey to who the individual coaches were, and back and forth. I'm going, this is a great drama. Now, I follow football, but hockey, nah, not so much. So I'm thinking, this is a community. It's a tribal thing almost. Here's what we talk about. So watching the news or what's happening over with my neighbors, or watching reality shows or soap operas or whatever, there's probably something that started in the campfires millennia ago.
But I feel that we are compromising our peace of mind.
So part of what pulled us together and pulls us together might also be the thing that doesn't let us turn off the television set in our heads.
Yeah.
Or the valuations.
I feel peace of mind really is about becoming quiet. And to be able to become quiet, I really need to switch off other people. And so I have to become introverted. And when I become introverted, then I really understand what my quality of thoughts are.
And so you're introverted, you're talking about in the introspection as well, that you can then pop out and be on stage if you need to, or whatever, but who you can return to.
And then when my quality of thoughts, I feel, then I'm able to look at my thoughts and say, is this a right thought? Should I have this? Shouldn't I have that? And so I'm able to evaluate my thoughts before thinking. And that is very important for peace of mind.
Yeah, I think part of it might be habit also, because if I don't evaluate and question my thoughts, then old habits, like an old grudge. Someone hurt my feelings in high school and now I'm having a high school reunion, and what am I going to say to them? Well, what could be weirder than going back 10 or 20 years to an old grudge?
Yeah, it's such an important thing. Thinking about the past really destroys my peace of mind.
And it gets us out of the present.
Yes, and so even yesterday, thinking about what happened yesterday is it's totally against. If I want peace of mind, I need to get rid of that.
So a common thing in history is that those who don't study history are doomed to recreate it. And often we create almost a deity out of the horrible thing that happened in the past, lest we ever forget, and that type thing. Does it ever serve purpose, or is it just hurting our peace of mind?
It does if you're able to make it into an essence. Whatever has happened, that I'm able to summarize it in one sentence and put a full stop, put a period, then it makes sense. But if I'm going into it and really digging it up and analyzing it, and
going through the emotional stuff, so we can say, I mean, we would all agree that genocide is a terrible thing. So if we can say this has happened, then I will be peaceful and hope it does not happen, maybe contribute to helping parts of the world to prevent it with education, water, food, etc. But you know, in this peace of mind, the quietness by definition has to come, because that's why I call it peace. But within that, the idea that we must be stirred up to make a difference, I think is totally wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I feel we make a huge difference when we really experience peace. That true peace, we make a big difference in the world.
So part of the being at peace is to have some level of unattachedness. I mean, an addiction would be the worst, but if we can drop an addiction to a preference, and a preference to just, well, it might be better with this.
Right, right. You know, actually, to understand peace of mind, I want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
The soul has 3 faculties, like the body has eyes and nose and ears and things like that. The soul has a mind, and that's where peace of mind, and the soul has a reasoning, which we call intellect actually, but it's a reasoning part of the soul, the awareness and the understanding part of the soul, which we call intellect, and we have the archives of the soul, which we call impressions. But the role of peace of mind is that the intellect actually is the reasoning part of the soul, and with that awareness and understanding, the intellect teaches the mind to be peaceful. And so understanding and awareness is important to have peace of mind. For example, I feel the heart within the soul, the heart wants love, the mind wants peace. That we as a people, we don't want too much tension. The intellect wants understanding. So all of these things have to come about to be able to have peace of mind. And I feel the best way to do this is that when I am totally connected with God, then that really gives me peace of mind. And actually the word we use is manmanabhav, which is that I'm totally connected with God with my mind. And so when my mind is connected to God, then that peace happens.
So when that peace happens, then who we interact with, they become more peaceful, at least ideally so.
Right.
Always, or is it we just need to become more peaceful? Let's say we're dealing with someone who's very angry and we can be peaceful in that. Does that move them toward more peace, or might that move them toward more frustration?
It could, but that shouldn't be our problem. I mean,
so peace of mind is really about peace of mind.
Right.
And I can only handle my mind. I can't handle your
other
mind.
people's mind.
You reminded me just now in saying that one of my mentors many years ago was a retired minister, and his name was Dr. Oscar Plum. And I was great at creating, well, what if this group in your church said this and this with that? And it was totally kind of like, what would you say then? And I so wanted to catch him. And he would smile, this lovely smile, and he'd say, I'd say something pleasing to everyone. And that sounded to me like he was being
a fence sitter.
But what I realized was I will love them regardless of their differences. And I only understood that, and it's his smile as he said it that I knew it was calming to me, even though my intellect really wanted the drama of catching him. So he experienced peace of mind even as this 25-year-old young man was challenging him. So maybe he was the lesson in that. What about letting go of the past? Is that part of the journey?
Yeah. If the mind has too much junk, whether from the past or from the present, or confusion or doubts and all of that, then that really prevents my peace of mind. So it's very important not to have that junk in the mind.
So letting go of the past, and that includes the forgetting part, I'm guessing. Forgive and forget.
Exactly.
So we come back to within the Appalachian stories of the Hatfields and McCoys who had a feud. I think that may be out of your frame of reference here. It was 2 families in the Virginias.
Heard about it.
Okay, good. Well, within that, but generation after generation, they fought each other. It was really an Ozark kind of Romeo and Juliet.
Maybe they didn't want peace of mind. It was more important, the fight for them.
Or to be right.
Right.
So whenever we're working at being right, I'd rather be right than president, I'd rather be right than have peace of mind, we're probably headed in the wrong direction.
Right. Yeah. And also, I feel that we have to prioritize our lives. And so if I am doing the same thing over and over and I'm not experiencing peace, then I really need to take a look at myself and say, yes, Am I doing this over and over, and what is it that I'm doing that I'm not experiencing peace? I have to be able to look at myself honestly that way.
That's really important, because a lot of the time when we're looking at, quote, looking at ourselves, we're self-justifying. Well, let me explain to you why I feel this way. You don't know the story. But whenever we're into the story, then we are moving farther from the reality of peace.
Right.
Or the possibility of
Right.
peace, even.
Right. To go back to what you were saying about being right, maybe experiencing peace is being right.
But the ultimate right, not in the right of the argument.
Right.
Yeah.
Experiencing peace is the right, that it's important to reframe right.
Yeah.
If that's my problem, let's say if I have an issue of being right, not to force myself and say, stop it, go experience peace of mind, but to just reframe right in my head.
Yeah, I like that. Also, there's something you said some weeks back in our discussions when I questioned you on when you have a conflict. You said, my first thought is, how do I put a period on this? How do I end it quickly? And in a funny way, that's your shortcut to peace of mind, because I'm jumping out of the illusion that this is important for my happiness.
Right. Mind actually is the messenger of the soul. And it's like the monitor of the computer. You know how the monitor gives us messages? In the same way, the mind is the messenger of the soul. So if I'm not experiencing peace of mind, there's something internally not going right. For example, if the monitor is telling me that something is not right and it's acting up, me hitting the monitor or getting angry at the monitor is really not going to help, because the computer it's just a messenger.
Right.
So we shouldn't be too harsh on the messenger. But if you're able to look deeper and see what it is that is causing me not to have this peace of mind, then I feel it's much more easier and important than thinking, oh, but I'm not having peace.
So if the messenger is telling us this doesn't feel right to me, then I ought to go deeper than the messenger. I mean, in history of killing the messenger who brought the bad news. But what you're saying is, take that as, this is something to pay attention to.
And the deeper thing is our conscience.
Yeah.
So if my conscience is not right, then I won't experience peace of mind.
Yeah.
And so so to not say why I'm not experiencing peace of mind, but to ask myself the question, how do I set my conscience right? What is it that I have, how is it my behavior has to change so my conscience is clean and clear?
So I can't cover up things that I am doing to hurt others, which is in essence hurting myself, though it's not as obvious maybe.
Because it's I pay with my peace of mind.
Yeah. So the conscience really isn't so much a thou shalt not as a harmonizing, is not a set of rules, but a harmonizing way of how can I have more peace with myself, with others.
Or that my inner behavior and my core values are all matching. That they're not inconsistent.
So is it important that we know our core values and voice them?
Right, and I feel both are important, because then we kind of set ourselves to live up to them.
Yeah.
If we don't know them or we don't voice them, then it's like, we give ourselves excuses and say, no, not to worry about it. No one knows about it anyway.
Yeah, but the real thing is we know about it. And that's where the peace of mind disappears.
Right.
So this is not to say that we have a code of what is functional within our lives, therefore we beat ourselves up if we step out of bounds. We just notice that didn't feel right when we get quiet, that isn't helpful to who we want to become.
Right.
So there's very little judgment of bad, evil, and all. It's just, we're off target just slightly on this.
Right.
I like that. So within that, forgiveness of self is the last piece we'll touch on now in our peace of mind. And that forgiveness is probably the last little cleanup that we need to do.
And also, in a way, I feel that if the heart is experiencing love, the mind is experiencing peace.
Very nice. I hope you've enjoyed this evening, that maybe you're feeling a little bit more peace of mind, maybe a little more love in your heart. Regardless, thanks for joining us. See you later.